Trafficking. All right, there it is. Okay, so what does this application is meant to do? So I mentioned here the purpose of this API is to determine if a good produced in a country is listed under good produced by child labor or forced child labor based on data sets provided by Department of Labor. Okay, and this is my GitHub repo. Okay, I mentioned the same thing there, and the way I do this is Department of Labor actually has this information on child labor and forced labor worldwide from ILF's 3 flagship reports, and you can see that right over here. Okay, so they have done an extensive study from 2014 to 2017, and I've collected and gathered all this data over here. And what they've done is they made it accessible through APIs. So where can I find the APIs? So let me see where it is. Sweat and dial. Yep. So this is the API which I've used to collect all the data which is available. So as you can mention here, it says that this dataset contains information on child labor and forced child labor worldwide from ILF's 3 flagship reports. Findings on worst forms of child labor, list of goods produced by child labor, forced child labor, and list of products produced by forced or injured child labor. So these are all the tables which are over here, and this is basically the source of my data. Okay, so let's quickly go back over to my application. Okay, so the infrastructure is made up of basically two main services, which is the DynamoDB and the API gateway. So I've created a template.yaml file which is in the SAM format or the SAM configuration, which will create the CloudFormation script, and you can use that to deploy the infrastructure. Okay, so since I have published my application to the AWS serverless application repository, you should be able to find it right over here. All right, so let's do first thing. Let's try to deploy this. Okay, so I'm pressing on deploy. Hopefully this should work. All right, so the only parameter which we require here is the IAM role ARN parameter, which is essentially the role which I've created, and I mentioned what this role should be like right over here, which is the HTGI API gateway role, which allows API gateway to access to DynamoDB for get item query. Okay, so let me just copy paste that from here. Okay, so once I have this, all right, it's right over here. Okay, let me try deploying this. Let's see it loading resources over here. All right, looks like this is going to work. Still taking some time. All right, so it's done. Let me open this in a new tab and see it's working. Here's my stack. Yep, looks like the stack is completed. As you can see here, it's created a DynamoDB, the API gateway based on the SAM template. Pretty awesome. Okay, so let's go a little deeper and see what exactly do we have right now. So the first things first, let me go to API gateway. Okay, all right, so this is the one which is created on today, which is October 7th. So Awesome. So this is my URI. So there is slash human trafficking indicator, country, country good, and goods. So pretty straightforward. Let's see if the integration request and response are working. The main part is the mapping template. Yep, the mapping template is there. Let's get back and see if the response has this integration. So for 200, mapping templates, application JSON. Yeah, I can see it. Awesome. So the idea here is that the response will be 200 with all the data that we have. If we find a given combination of a country and a particular good, if not, it's going to return 404. All right. Now let's go to our DynamoDB table. Okay, let's see all the tables. Okay, so this is the one which got created. No items so far as expected, but looks like it has done its job. It has created the table. Okay, so let's get back. So we are done with the infrastructure. Looks like everything is working just fine. The next thing is we need to load data into the DynamoDB table. So I created this Python script, which is over here. So what it would do is that it would go to the API which I mentioned earlier, the sweat and toil, which is maintained by the Department of Labor. It's freely available. The only thing is that you need to register and get the API key. The API keys are free and they take like over a day or something for the API key to activate, but it's fine. Like I had no problems doing this. Okay, so the other thing which I mentioned here is that you need to create an environment variable called dol underscore API underscore key and have its value with the API key. Pretty straightforward, huh? Okay, so how do you actually start loading data? Now to load data, what I've done is that I've created a profile name for my AWS account because I have a lot of accounts and this is the account which I use here. I need to choose the region, and for this I'm going to use the US East region. So let me see how that thing works. Okay, clear this off. Yep, as you can see here, human trafficking data load dot Python, and the profile name is Avi and the region is US East 1. Okay, so let's see this loading. Anytime now. And while we're waiting to load, oh, there it started. So it's getting all this data from the Department of Labor data set on uh, child labor and forced labor for the countries which they have identified and for the various goods. Is pretty in-depth. Okay, just adding all this. Should be done now. Yep, it's all done. Cool. So let's just go back to DynamoDB and check what's happening here. Awesome. So we have the country code, the good, the advancement level and advancement level description. The advancement level is how much the country is doing to work out, like to eliminate child labor and forced child labor. It tells for this particular good if there is child labor which was detected or forced child labor or all three, the region name, the which report, which year this was reported, and the sector. All right, so let's get back to the API gateway. All right. Okay, this is the API gateway, and so since we have this, we should be able to test this out. So let's use the country India and use like coffee. All right, so here we have the response. See, so we have the good is coffee, child labor, yes, so it's detected the child labor, which year this was reported, and what the country is doing. So there is a significant advancement, and it mentions like what India has been doing, or that the government of India has been doing to eliminate the worst forms of child labor. Okay, so this is it. Now the next step would be to actually deploy this API, and let's try that. So created stage. Yep, this is the first stage deploy. Okay, let me save the changes. Okay, so let me see how this is gonna work. This is this, and let me go back to API gateway. It's gonna be this, paste it here. Okay, country is onion. Okay, oops. Good is coffee. Let's see if this thing works. Yep, there it is. Works. Awesome. So so the next question would be, how do you actually use this API, right? So my thought process is that I think this makes sense during the supply chain management. So if you are looking at certain goods during the certain supply chain management that you are getting from certain country, or you happen to know that this is where it was manufactured, so this would be a good way to check if there was any child labor or forced child labor involved in this. And this also gives like a perspective of what that country is doing to eliminate it, and so the company can make like informed decisions based upon this. And that's really how I want this API to be used. Okay, so the main thing is informed decisions. They can then follow up if they were to find that this particular product may be involved in some kind of child labor, and they can have a follow up, see that the company is doing, following all the right processes or whatever it is to ensure that there is no trafficking involved during the production of this product. So that's how I foresee this to work. All right, that's it, I guess.